It's my pleasure to welcome you home because this is your school and this is your constituency. The Dean, Lagos Business School, Professor Ogbeche, the chairperson of the Alumni Day, Mrs. B.C. Lamikaran, all other protocols duly observed. Your Excellency, we do not want to keep you waiting any longer, and so I will not be making a very long speech, except to say that in a few minutes, the stage will be set for you, and you will be speaking to your own community, an audience of over 6,000 members, and who have network effects in tens of thousands of Nigerian voters. We may have some people who do not want to vote at all, some who want to vote against you, and those who will be voting for you. As we know, the president is not going to be elected only by those who vote for the person that has the majority of vote, but also by those who refuse to vote. So, Your Excellency, we hope that at the end of the interactive session with us here today, you will convert as many of those who do not want to vote, and as many of those who do not intend to vote for you to vote for you. So I wish you well, and as I ask you to come to the stage, I would like to say that you will enter into a symbolic contract with us. A contract that the things you are going to promise us here, if elected, you will do those things. It's in that respect that we sent you in advance the issues we want you to talk to and the questions. And you would observe that we asked not only what, but the how and when. So on that note, Your Excellency, welcome to the stage.
Put your hands together for a former two-term governor of Anambra State. He's a businessman who has founded and run several companies in commerce, retail, and finance. He has also held several executive positions in banking before becoming the youngest chairman of Fidelity Bank. And I also hear he's an alumnus of LBS. Now, you may have heard, too, that he's running for president, but under the banner of the Labour Party. Good to meet you, sir.
So, symbolically, I'm now going to hold this document with His Excellency as a demonstration of his commitment and contract with us that if he is the preferred candidate of Nigerian voters, he will keep to the promises that he is going to make to us. So, Your Excellency, may I respectfully request you to be upstanding.
Let me welcome back our moderators. We have, like we met before, an associate professor of strategy, immediate past director general of LCCI. I'm talking about Dr. Muda Yusuf. Please put your hands together for him. He's also an alumnus of the Lagos Business School. Now, before we head to questions, I understand that His Excellency, former Governor Peter Obi, has a few words he would like to share. No? Okay, so we'll head right to the questions then. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you again, moderator, and good afternoon, everyone. And we are back to the second session. As we heard earlier on in the morning, Your Excellency, we are running to be the President of Nigeria. Of course, we're expecting you to tell us, we already know there are three key questions in national planning. One is, where are we? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? Where are we in Nigeria is a public knowledge. We already know with regards to the issue of unemployment, insecurity, and many other socioeconomic problems that we face. The next one is, given where we are, where do we want to go? So, which is now your vision, and then how do we get there, which is now how you're going to implement this your vision. On this note, Your Excellency, a key question is the issue of the structure of governance in Nigeria. So many people believe that the federal government is doing a lot. They're arguing that there's a need for moving some powers to the state and local government. Interestingly, in your state, we've been hearing so many things from your state, but recently it was said that some investments in Anambra State are somehow. So we're wondering that how. So we're also asking you a question with regards to, if you look at the exclusive list and the concurrent lists, which items do you think should be moved from that exclusive list to the concurrent list for the state and local governments? Your Excellency, thank you. Yes.
Sorry, I'll prefer that, to stand up, and then let me start by most sincerely thanking the President for inviting me, and all of you that are gathered here for the opportunity of being part of this program. Thank you. I'll go straight into the question, as I'll make my comment after the questions and everything. On the structure of Nigeria, you know it is a constitutional matter. All I can say to you that the structure as it is today is not working, and it requires that we deal with it. But I cannot here say this is going to move. There's so many things that needs to move to the states, not actually to the local government. The local government, in a federal system, you actually have the two federating units at the center and the states. So I'll move it that they will know the ones that are going to move to the local level, just like as in the United States of America. But there's quite a number of them: education, agriculture, so on and so on and everything. But there are things that we need to do as quickly as possible, especially to do with the issue of security. There's no way we can continue with the central policing as we're doing today. We need to have state police, federal police, and like I've mentioned, local government police, but federal and state can be done as quickly as possible, because the president has some few powers to do things as quickly as possible while we wait for the amendment of the Constitution. But I assure you that there's so many powers. On the other issue you mentioned, I wasn't quite sure what you mentioned about in my state. So maybe I'll go on and answer that as we go on in this. Thank you.
Your Excellency, you know that I will beg you and implore you to sit down.
No, I'll stand up.
That means all of us will stand up and join you.
No, don't worry. Don't worry, I'm fine.
I'm sure the audience also wants you to sit down.
No, because they'll be seeing me, because I'm the one who is applying for
a job.
Those who are interviewing should sit down.
Okay? So as you prefer to stand up, so the second question relates also to cost of governance. As you are aware, there's a general belief that the cost of governance in Nigeria is too high. And the Orosanye report recommends for the downsizing of the size of government. How and when will you reduce the cost of governance, and will you implement the Orosanye report?
when I asked the president yesterday, am I going to make a speech? He said, oh, we sent you some list of questions. And I said, President, I won't have time to read that. But when I came here, he reminded me again. I sent something to him. I wish you can, is there any way you can just show a bit of what I sent to you? I sent him a write-up by my head of service, which I wish he can share sometime, where the topic was stinginess as a development strategy. When I became governor of Anambra State, I had one of the best head of service you have, a daughter of a respected judge in this country, well-educated, a lawyer, first-class person. And she will always run into my office and say, Pico, Peter, please, please, nobody is happy with you. Everybody is unhappy. Because you seem to be cutting everything. However, 6 months after, I started using the same money to pay off backlog of old pension, gratuity, everything. They were wondering, the cost of governance in Nigeria is unacceptable. The waste is huge. And you can deal with it. With the issue of the report you mentioned, the Alumni report, yes, because there's so many duplications. And you find out that the entire system needs overhaul, make it to be more functional, train people more, be able to bring technology for efficiency and effectiveness. So it's something you need to deal with. I have done it, that they said, that was why I said, I wish you can share or show it, so they'll see what I've done. If there's anything anybody can say they've seen me practice or do, it is cost of governance. Everybody know that. Even till today, you will know that even as I move now, people say, oh, Peter, this thing you seems to be going alone. And I said, when they invite you in a place, ask them whether they invited only you or with some people. Don't go and start causing confusion all over the place. So cost of governance for me is something I practice every day. As governor, I shut down Anambra State Liaison Office in Lagos, the Governor's Lodge in Lagos. I shut down the Governor's Office in Abuja. I shut down our presidential lodge, everything. I said, listen, the governor of Anambra State doesn't live in Lagos or in Abuja. Why are you going to have a house there? Everybody knows what we did when it comes to cost of governance, including removing the office of First Lady. Very sorry about that because they didn't vote my wife, but we were very close. So two of us worked as a family. But she wasn't on the ballot. But we remained together and served the state together as one without causing additional confusion. So the cost we'll deal with, or other report, we will implement because there's so many duplications. We did it in Anambra State where we had to bring together certain offices and make it more effective and functional.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So from what we are hearing, it means that you are an apostle of saving money, cutting the cost of governance, and somehow people call it a shiftless transaction. So if we use that relating to the next question in terms of issue of insecurity and also the money you saved, which I believe that you invested for Anambra State, what are your views on immediate and remote causes of insecurity that is pervasive in the country? And what are your plans for changing the narrative in the short, medium, and long term? Particularly, what are your views on the need for state police? I know you mentioned it earlier on. Will you create one, and when will that be done?
Okay. Well, nobody can be where we are today and will not have insecurity. I've studied countries after country. You can't have the highest number of people living in poverty and you won't have criminality to the level we have it today. You can't have unemployment. No country of our size that I know with the level of unemployment where you have almost 35% unemployment, with youth unemployment hitting almost 60%. So you have millions of youths in their productive age with so much energy, and you will not have insecurity problem. There's no country that will have millions of out-of-school children, and you won't have criminality. You can go on and on. Our youth drug prevalence is 13.8, when the average is about 5.6, 5.8. You can't have all this without having criminality. So these are what you can call immediate and remote causes of that. And I've been privileged to have visited at least 5 to 6 prisons, trying to ask questions from those in prisons. Why did you do that? What happened? What is? And all of them, not all of them, I didn't say some of them, told me they're not doing anything. They don't have a job. They don't have anything. When you have millions of people who don't know where the next meal will come from, you're bound to have crisis. I say to anybody, there's no country of our size that I know. What we are going through today, countries after countries have gone through it. You can go and study what has happened in Brazil, Mexico, countries with huge population. So you have a huge population, you're going to face such crises. How do you deal with it? First, I believe that the first job of whoever is going to be the next president of Nigeria is security. You have to deal with it decisively. And it is not, it will be difficult, but it's something that is achievable. You have to deal with it decisively by first restructuring the entire security architecture to make it responsive and responsible. So this is what it is. Somebody is responsible. It's not happening, the person goes, and you deal with it. You have to increase your manpower, train them, equip them properly. We have, saw it in my interviews, that we have about 300 and something thousand police. I told the IG, the present IG, and I want to quote him, that there are 370,000 police, because that's what I was told. He told me, no, there are about 320,000. And I know that, considering the number following people around, including myself, and that 70,000 is off. Because you can see so many people having one person having as much as 50, 30 police around him. So, if you minus that, so you have 250,000 police for a population of 200 million. It is unacceptable. Egypt is 100 million, and they have over 1 million police. So you need to increase the number. You heard the governor of Katsina say that even when you go to a police station, this is the small number, you will only see 10 police people, and only half of them is armed. So even the 250, they don't have ammunition. So it's a crisis situation that you need to deal with, and deal with it decisively. So you need to increase the manpower, train them, equip them properly, and then motivate them. Let people feel that they are doing their work and everything. So that's what we're going to do in terms of security. Doing this simultaneously, you're dealing with the economy. Because unless you start pulling people out of poverty, the more you pull people out of poverty, the more you reduce criminality. Unless you start pulling people out of poverty, you're going to have a crisis. And people will say, how are you going to do it? Again, there's the room to do that. We have, today, Nigeria cannot feed itself. And Nigeria have it's the only country I know that have vast uncultivated land, and people are going hungry. There's no other country. If India can feed itself, Nigeria can. I was in the UK when we are rationing food. India is 1.4 billion people. Of course, living on 3.2 million square kilometers of land. So we are 1/7 of India, and we stay on 1/3 of their land. So we have more land for agriculture. We have 923,000 square kilometers, which is a third of their land. So when you do that, if we're able to feed ourselves today, one is that you deal with food inflation, reduce and have more money you save from importation of food items and everything. This is the first thing. Of course, you go into the next processing, manufacturing. There's a lot you can do in different other areas to start pulling people out of poverty as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's very interesting the way you are linking insecurity to economy and with all the facts and data that you're giving us. And I'm sure you know, you are telling us to go and verify.
Recording in progress.
So using that, even before we verified the facts, which we know are valid, you also agree that since the return of democracy in 1999, we've had many economic reforms. But you're seeing where we are as a country. You know where we are with regards to unemployment, inflation, insecurity, manufacturing, and many other socioeconomic problems that we are facing. What key economic reforms should we expect from you, and when will that start?
Well, I think it was part of what I mentioned last, but let me assure you that Nigeria is not a productive country. My campaign is very simple. I'm going to move Nigeria from consumption to production. And it's a very straightforward thing. I've just given you an example of one item that shows that we're not productive. And as we go along, when we deal with the other factors and everything, you will know why I say that we're not productive. You know, our size, one measure of production in a country, which is even measure of your economy, is productivity, which is always linked to export. That is one of the things that will help you to even stabilize your currency. So for me, the first thing to deal with is, when I come in, is to deal with the issue of security, of life and property, uniting the country, dealing with low-hanging issues like oil theft, because I've said it before, that the only people who can steal oil are people in government. Nobody outside that can steal government, because a ship has to come in. And then you have to approve it to come in and approve it to go out. You start dealing with such issues. Start dealing with issues like subsidy, start dealing with issues like corruption. By the time you reduce cost of governance, deal with all these issues, you start having things you need to. When you secure the country, your farmers go back to farm. You start dealing with the food inflation, which will contribute to the overall inflation. Then because you're not going to invest in agriculture by immediately recapitalizing your Bank of Agriculture, bring all the deposit bank to be the owner of this facility and run it properly where they're lending money to real farmers. Not people staying in Abuja and saying they're doing anchor borrowers, people, outgrowers, all sorts of programs that nobody sees the light of the day. So government should not be involved in all those things. There's a process which is done in every other country of the world. When you start doing this, you start seeing things move. So these are immediate things that you will need to see. You didn't ask me about issue of police last time. I said immediately we are going to deal with the issue of police from day one. So are we going to deal with the issue of so many things I've told you, issue of corruption, cutting costs of governance, dealing with subsidy and co. As you're doing this, there are things that, the reason why I said the long-hanging fruits is the more you do them, the more there's opportunities, create jobs in other areas.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Of course, we all agree that what he's explaining to us is what we can call associational economy. They're all related, from insecurity to corruption to oil theft. And by the time we tackle all of them, Nigeria will be a better place. But to help us to go into more detail with regards to the issue of economy, let me invite Dr. Muda Yusuf to ask a few questions on economy. Dr. Muda Yusuf, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Your Excellency. Although I know you have mentioned something about subsidy, but we know how big an issue it is, given the amount of resources that is being committed to it, given the impact on deficit, given the impact on the rising debt, and more importantly, having regard to the effects of effect on investment in the oil and gas sector. So in a much more comprehensive way, how exactly will you deal with this issue of subsidy, having also regard to some of the social ramifications about possibility of increase in fuel price and all of that, and how soon are we likely to see the removal of subsidy? Will it be from day one? Will it be by the end of the year, or how exactly?
Thank you very much. I've always said that subsidy is organized crime. First is that half of what you call subsidy today, for me, is crime. Because it doesn't exist. The amount of fuel they say will consume is not possible. Not in this economy, and I've thought, go and match it up with countries of our size, with their level of economy. One is Pakistan. They are 215 million. We are about the same size. They have even more roads than we have, and they consume less. Below 50% of what we consume. So I want to stop those who are drinking the other half to stop first. We'll give them water instead to drink, because it's healthier. Then we must remove subsidy. There's no way any country can continue with subsidy. Look at our next year's budget. A budget of about 21 trillion. Subsidy is going to consume 6 trillion. You have a deficit of about 11 trillion, and one item is about 6 trillion. How can you continue with that? We will remove it as quickly as possible. Use the resources. We will support investors in refinery, but modular, all sorts of things are here. Dangote's zone is nearing completion. We'll support him. Whatever we can. But will subsidy go? You say you have a contract. I want you to be on tape. You will go. Those who are living off that confusion will no longer continue. We cannot have 11 trillion. We cannot have over 50% deficit in our budget, and we have one item that we can change that. So if you remove that, and it's going to go as quickly as possible, there's a lot you can do to ensure that we even stop importation of fuel and associated products. And I'm sure there's ways I've met the people in that sector, and I've told them, like she requested, using merit, I'm going to assemble, there's Nigerians that are vast, competent in that sector that I'm going to bring on board, and we will deal with that issue as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now to foreign exchange. The foreign exchange situation is one of the biggest challenges that this economy is facing at the moment. We are grappling with high volatility. We are grappling with liquidity crisis. We are grappling with the problem of rationing of foreign exchange with all the attendant transparency problems. So how exactly will you deal with this problem of foreign exchange? And how quickly are we going to see some action in terms of, putting an end to some of the distortions that we have in the foreign exchange market? And related to that is the fact that we have a CBN Act that confers autonomy on the Central Bank of Nigeria. And the Central Bank has opted to adopt the current policy by virtue of its independence. So how are you going to reconcile whatever your position will be on foreign exchange with the issue of the autonomy of the CBN and its current position?
Well, I'm not going to dwell on issue of autonomy of central bank. I support their autonomy. Dealing with foreign exchange is a very easy thing. Your rates and volatility of your foreign exchange is a function of your foreign reserve, which is directly linked to your exports. Import and export. Because you are not the country that is productive, you're not dealing with anything. It's a simple thing. A country with size of Nigeria, our total export last year is 18.9 trillion. Naira. 220 million people living on 923,000 square kilometers. Total export, go and check. Yes, they will tell you if you use 410 naira for the rate, that will give you $47 billion. For me, who normally uses an average of about 650, because that's the one that I can get. I've never seen one 410. Maybe some of you, because of your connection, can get it. We get more than that, but 650 is below $30 billion. It is unacceptable for a country of our size. Totally unacceptable. And I give you tiny countries. Let me start, I give you very quickly 4 countries to show you how poor you are in that. Israel is 22,000 square kilometers. So if you minus in land, if you minus 23,000, we're left with 900,000. There are about 9 million, 8.9 million, call it 10 million. So you minus 10 million people, we have 210 million. Israel total export last year, $59.8 billion. So they did twice, 220 million people on almost 50 times their size of land did. That is Israel. Netherlands, this is the first world now. Leaving minus water, 33,000 square kilometers of land. If you minus water on them. Total export, over 500 billion. We are barely doing about 5% of what they did. In fact, I always mention Niger State. Niger State today is about 7 local governments is under control of gangsters and criminals. Niger State. Niger State, they have a fertile land that can feed Nigeria. They can't feed themselves. They are waiting for statutory allocation of less than 50 billion naira a day. When Netherlands agricultural export last year is $103 billion, about 103 billion euros, about $120 billion. And Niger State is 76.3 thousand square kilometers, 2.5 times Niger State. That's 2.5 times Netherlands. It cannot continue. It's not a productive country. Compared with a developing country like Vietnam. Vietnam live on 331,000 square kilometers. So a third of our land, and about 100 million below our population. Their export last year is over $350 billion. That is how you control and bring stability in your currency. You have to export. You have to earn dollars. We cannot be dependent 80% on oil that gives us less than $20 billion. Bangladesh did $36 billion clothing. They did twice what we earn from oil, from clothing. Now people can do everywhere, in our band, everywhere. We're not producing anything. Of the 350 I told you that Vietnam did, 90% is manufactured goods. Electronics is something billion. Clothing, 32 billion. Footwear, almost more than what we earn from oil. What a minute. We're not doing anything. We're not producing anything. So we can't continue that way. We need to do something very quickly and start production and exporting goods. That's the only way you can earn dollar. And this is doable. It's not a rocket science.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Excellency. Just a follow-up on that. Many operators in the private sector are not comfortable with this multiple exchange rates. You know, what is your view on the policy angle?
That's what I'm telling you, because you have scarcity. Once you have scarcity, you have to have all sorts of measures. Black market, open market, white market. Once you start exporting now, all these countries, let me tell you, I visited Brazil, Mexico, when they had all this. But today, you can't go and do it in Brazil. Brazil have about 400 billion exports annually. If Nigeria start exporting now, and when we used to be productive, you don't need that. You go to a bank, you buy it, it's money. If you start producing now and exporting, you don't need all this multiplicity, anything. You don't need them. What you need is to deal with the problem. Don't go and start saying how we are going to have central bank. Once there's scarcity, once you don't have anything, there's bound to be black market, open market, white market. But once it's open, everybody can see it. Remember, there's a time everyone and each of us, knew people who worked in Nitel. I don't know whether anybody can remember Nitel again. No. Once the moment mobile phone and everything came, everybody threw. So I've lived in this country when you go to a bank, they will be begging you to buy BTA. They were looking for somebody. As a businessman in this country, bank were begging me to come and open LC. Then I saw when it is impossible to do anything. What you need is look at it, people are stealing your oil. Just to show you how that can be regulated. Angola, beginning of this year, Angola, their rate was about $600 to $1. At a high oil price, it came down to 400 and something. But your own couldn't happen because you are the only OPEC country that was not meeting its quota, apart from Venezuela, because of sanction. Your oil is being stolen. You have 1.8 million barrels. That's what you're supposed to be producing daily, 1.8. In the entire August, your production was 975. You were losing 825 every day. Multiplied by 1 month, 31 days, it's about 25 million barrels. You did not sell. Whether you're sharing it as 100 naira average in August, that's 2.5 billion. So a man who needs every cent can allow that to go. It's not possible. That's why I said, as president, instead all of us will go and queue up on that pipeline and wait and see who will take it. It's not possible. And you're looking for foreign investor. You're looking for foreign investor when people are stealing the one you have at home. The first investor you need is to make sure that the one in your home is not being stolen. So you can deal with it. These are low-hanging fruits I'm talking. We will not go and man that pipeline. We will move presidency to pipeline because that's income.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now, let me now go to the fiscal operations of government. The fiscal position of government is extremely weak, extremely, very fragile. We have a debt position now of over 60 trillion. If you add the DMO figures with the ways and means, our debt service is over 6 trillion proposed for 2023. So all of these things are really very challenging fiscal situation. And we are talking about a revenue of just over 9 trillion for 2023. Now, how are you going to ensure fiscal sustainability, when in government, to ensure that you don't get deeper into debt in order to finance the the operations of government?
Well, first is that, let me say it categorically, there's nothing wrong in borrowing. Every government in the world that I know and have studied are owing. It is what you use the debt for that is a problem. In 2017, I remember delivering a lecture in Lagos at the platform, and I said, we are going to be in a mess in years to come. Because I have federal government then saying they're going to spend their way out of recession, that they're going to use consumption. You can't drive your way out of recession by consumption in a non-productive country. For a productive country like America and everything, you can do that. You can use consumption to come out of it. But when you're not producing anything, you can't use consumption to come out of it. Because what you're going to do is that you're going to go in down deeper. Borrowing is not a problem. Every country, when she introduced what they were, when she introduced, when I was listening to my dear sister say this is what they expect me to do, it cited that wonderful country, Singapore. Singapore debt to GDP today is over 120%. But go and read Singapore law. It says you can only borrow for investment. So it's a law, it's written. So whatever you borrow, you invest it. I can compare you countries that have borrowed for investment. The one that easily comes to mind is Bangladesh. I use it every day. Bangladesh. We were at the same level of debt with Bangladesh, in the sense that in 2010, Bangladesh debt to GDP was about 45%. Their GDP was about 115 then, was about $45 billion. Their per capita was $747. Ours then was 2,250. Our GDP was 375 billion. Today, Bangladesh GDP is now over 300 billion. Their debt have gone up to where it is now $115 billion. So it's gone down a little bit. It's not about, it's gone down in percentage, if I remember. It's gone down a little bit in percentage. No, in 2010 it was about 35. Now it's about 33. Now, Nigeria, our debt have moved from about 30-something, 40-something billion dollars to 100, from what you said now, at 60 trillion, that's what you said. If we use their rate, it's about $120 billion. So our debt has tripled. Our per capita is now 1,980, call it 2,000. So in 10 years, over 10 years, our debt tripled. Our per capita, which is a measure of the economy, have almost lost 10%. That's not acceptable. What we needed to do now is that if their own can move from, their per capita is now over $2,000, they move from $747 to over $2,000. Ours should have moved from $2,250 to about at least $3,000. That's what it should have been. So the money we borrowed, we threw it away. That is the crisis we are facing. It's simple. So how are you going to deal with that? You insist that all borrowed money will be used strictly for investment and for things that will contribute in building a better country no longer. But remember, when you remove subsidy, deal with the issue of corruption, increase your oil export, you reduce your deficits, you can restructure what is existing, have room to accommodate more investable borrowing, and start dealing with issues. Because subsidy, even rate of exchange you're saying now, part of it, by the time you remove subsidy, remove corruption, you have bad money that is pursuing dollar today, they will all go away. You see the rate. You stabilize where it's supposed to be.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. That was a very good response. Now, let me take you to inflation. One of the biggest problems we are confronted with today is high inflation. And this is affecting the welfare of the citizens. It's making a lot more people poorer because of the erosion of purchasing power. It's increasing production costs, and it's also eroding profit margins. So how will you deal with the problem of inflation, both from the policy angle and from the structural angle?
Well, I've mentioned the first, a few of them. By the time you secure the country and farmers are able to go back and you increase the agricultural productivity, you deal with issue of food, which is the most critical inflation you need to deal with. You deal with the issue of food inflation, which is about 20-something% today. If you deal with that, the more you're able to, by the time you remove and contain the fiscal rascality that is coming from the fiscal side, with the issue of subsidy, corruption, everything, you start managing your, you see inflation take the other side, start coming down. It's not, it's something that you can deal with as quickly as possible. It might not be overnight, but you can deal with it. So that is how to manage it. That, of course, the more productive the country is, the more effective and everything, you start dealing with that. But it can be dealt with and brought down to a level where it will be maybe high end of single digit, but not where it is today.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm sure you agree with me that he's doing well and he's passing. But very soon, not yet for us to give him a final mark. So because we have more questions to ask him, but we'll be concluding gradually. Your Excellency, you know that ASU has been on strike for over 8 months. They just called it off, paid them half salary, and are planning to go back again on strike. So what would be your plan to permanently end this perennial ASU strike?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things. One, it shows your attitude towards education. My sister talked about merit, about investing. Education is the highest, most important investment any nation can do. Because when you talk about development, development is measured on 3 things. HDI, that is the main thing. And HDI is hinged on 3 things. One is life expectancy, which is health, which you must stay with, issue of healthcare, education, which is, of the 3 I'd say, is the most important. Today, your law in education, our human capital, as you know, is one of the lowest. So you need to deal with it. And then, of course, your per capita. You need to pay more attention. There will be a combination of things to do that can make ASU strike not to exist. As you know, as governor of Anambra State, ASU went on strike. And you can go and listen to what the alumni president said, that because of my decision and how they met me, Anambra State University is one of those universities that are not on strike too. Throughout that 8 months, ASU was on strike. So there's a combination of things you need to do, but it goes to how serious you take education. I can assure you that I'll not be sitting down when they're on strike for 3 months, but there's still a lot of things to do. There's a lot of work in that area that we can do to fund our tertiary education. Basic education is free and compulsory, but tertiary education must be paid for, but there must be a way we can do it because we need it.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Related to that question is the issue of out-of-school children, which Nigeria has the highest in the whole world, particularly the girl child. What are your plans to reverse this trend? What targets are we looking for, and when likely we will start having reduction in out-of-school children?
Issue of education is immediate. Like I said, it's the most important investment a nation can do. The more educated your people are, the more better your economy. And there's a lot that comes with education. Today, let me give you an example. Nigeria is saying that they're now getting from diaspora remittances about $20 billion. And you have about 5-10 million Nigerians living abroad, which I've always said, if you get things working here, you double that remittances. But we have 20 million people that are not educated. When we talk about our school, some of them haven't even been to school at all. But surprisingly, they are more in the north. And what will shock you is that those people you say they're out of school, actually have learned and crammed the entire Quran in their head. So I'll build school, I'll meet them at the point where they're learning Quran and teach them skill. Teach them other things they can do. They will learn Quran, then will they be educated, especially with the skill set that we need today, or we can export. If you go around the world, whether it's in Dubai, whether it's in London, everywhere, you see Egyptians everywhere. You see Afghanistan, you see so many other countries. Today, Egypt gets more diaspora remittance than 100 million than Nigeria because they've trained their people. People are now talking about hiring Singaporeans, Filipinos in their house. Filipinos have a ministry devoted to training and exporting people for diaspora remittances. They get over 60 billion from it. So we need to, that's why our population is. We will tackle it head on.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We have just 4 more questions, and we open it up to the audience. The next question relates to the issue of infrastructure, which you agree with me. Road, rail, and so many other, both physical and soft infrastructure. But of course, you know, for the private sector to do well, we need power. With regards to the issue of power, currently we have the GENCOs, we have the Transmission Company of Nigeria, and we have the DISCOs. However, total installed capacity is still below 20,000. The one that is being waived, about 5,000. What will you do in the power sector to address this issue, to really empower and liberate the private sector to contribute significantly to the economy?
Well, issue of power is one that you need to declare war on. First is that you said we have an installed capacity of about 12,500. And we're only able to transmit and distribute about 5,000. So aggressively, you deal with the issue of improving the transmission infrastructure and distribution infrastructure to be able to deal with what you have already. As you're doing this, simultaneously, you are supporting investment by putting proper regulatory and enabling environment and supporting those who are in that field today to ensure that there's more generation, more distribution. You have to deal with the issue of, again, ensuring that the way we are today with the issue of transmission is dismantled, where it can't just continue the way it is. You have to deal with the issue of supporting embedded, all sums, renewable, whatever anybody can do in power. South Africa is 60 million people, generating nearly 50,000, 60 million, generating about 50,000, and their president have declared emergency in power and authorized that anybody can generate and distribute up to 100 megawatts. And we have 5,000. What we would declare is a war and say anybody can generate, do anything you can do. There's a lot of things you need to do. Those who are generating power today, part of their problems you have to look at issue of gas. There must be a dedicated gas to power generation. You support it, whichever way it's going to work. You have to deal with issues where if we need hydro, if we need anything, there's so many people who are in this sector. It's a mix of so many things that you need to do. But you must do them, have the will to support it and ensure that people can see a measurable improvement as quickly as possible. But I assure you that even in my manifesto, I said I'll deliver about 20,000, and I'm committed to it.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Last question from me before Dr. Muda will ask last 2 questions. With regards to the issue of our seaports, you see what is going on there, that it's so difficult to clear goods. Some people actually claim that it is a lot easier to import into Nigeria to even move the goods from our seaports to other parts of Nigeria. Even exporting from Nigerian seaports is a big issue. Some people also claim that if you're exporting from Ghana, it will get to the destination before even Nigerian one leaves Nigerian seaport. What will you do to change the seaport challenges in terms of clearing of goods in Nigeria?
Well, the challenges first is associated with what we operate today. It's a transitional and criminalized space. So people live off that confusion. That's why it's there in the first place. Seaport is something I know very well because I've been a trader myself. So I know the challenges and I know how you can improve it. In fact, it's one of those places we are targeting to improve in order to earn more money, revenue for the government. And to do that, you need to make sure that the existing facilities are meant to function as an aid and enabler to a trade facilitator and make them to work by making sure that both your customs and everybody becomes a support and aid, a facilitator of trade, and not even a revenue. And because of that, you earn more revenue. Develop additional port, bring in a proper regulatory environment that can allow investors to invest in that sector and run it as efficiently as possible. And to other infrastructure you mentioned, there's no way government can continue to deal with infrastructures the way they're dealing with it today. We need to look for the ones that are, that you can say that are investable. People can, other companies, corporations, people can invest in and be able to bring in people through our capital market to invest. All you need is to have appropriate laws, regulatory environment that protects the investor. There's quite a number of infrastructures government should not be involved today, but regulate it very well and make sure that it's properly run and managed and get more revenue, like seaport, airports and all this. You do it properly by making sure that efficient people, not that you go and say your concession unit and you OB, you go and concession it to another OB. So that's, you do it properly with people who have the capacity to manage it and you see it work. So we will deal with infrastructure by dealing with it under PPP, but do it in a way that first-class institutions can invest in it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Two quick questions from Dr. Yusuf, and we'll open it up to the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your Excellency, our health sector is in a crisis. We are losing our doctors, our nurses, pharmacists, laboratories, and most of them are living in droves. We'd like to have your perspective on what you are going to do differently, to address this issue.
Well, every time people say we're having a brain drain, my position is that we're going to have a drain gain. When we turn around this country and start doing proper things, and people see a future, people are living because there's a sense of hopelessness. Those who are living, are staying here, some of them are people who are already trapped. They can no longer go anywhere. So that is why they're staying. I'm sure if you leave it open, more people will leave. But if you do the right things, those that are living today are actually your investors for tomorrow. The changes you see in China, India, and everything, we actually, people who left there and went to America, to Europe, to everything, now things that are good there are coming back. I will bring Nigerians back here. They will be the first set of investors. If you're talking about foreign investors, the first people that come to invest in any country are first, the local. Capital is local. The moment people start seeing that people local are making profit, the next group of people are your own people who left, who are now coming back to share in that prosperity. Then the foreigners will see them because it's like bee and honey. The local bees start saying there's honey here. The external ones will join. So we will change it. I assure you. That brain drain will be drain gain when we do the right things. But I don't urge anybody to stay if things are going wrong. I'm sure you're here because you're trapped. You don't know where to go.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency. Final question has to do with climate change. We appreciate your response to the flood, the victims, and the empathy that you have shown. Now, we have serious issues with climate change. We have flooding, and we also have had desertification over the years, which has also been contributing to problem of insecurity in the north. How are you going to deal with the problem of climate change?
Well, you know, there's a lot of studies about climate change that you need to look at and everything. I assure you that we'll follow the protocol. Within what we can manage, we have to talk about, we'll follow the protocol in a managed and organized manner where it will allow us to be able for our economy to remain productive and people to create jobs and everything. There's ones we need to deal with as quickly as we can. With the issue of flood, for example, issue of flood is because over the years, we've neglected dredging, the silting of our rivers, which would have taken most of the flood and be able to contribute to the economy by being a means of transportation. You know, for example, if we have been dredging and we have been awarding contracts for the dredging of Niger, for dredging of Benue, River Benue. If the right things had been done there, I assure you, we wouldn't have had the level of flooding we have had. If we had built dams and everything, which will help even in the places they are talking about that is drying up, if we had done that, we would have used it effectively. And this is not something that is sophisticated. It's being done everywhere. And Nile today, everybody knows what the Nile is to Egypt. They tell you that no Nile, no Egypt. But it's not the same case with our own. If Egypt can deal with Nile that is 6,650 kilometers long, tell me why the giant of Africa, Nigeria, cannot deal with Niger. River Niger is 4,184 kilometers long. River Benue is 1,400. Two of them combined is still 1,000 short of the Nile. We can do it. And I believe that these are things we need to do. Dredging it, making it so it becomes a means of transportation and everything. That is the critical thing we need to do. And I assure you that nobody will play with any contract that is awarded under my watch. I'll be responsible. I've said it. Nigerians should hold me responsible. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm receiving messages that we are standing between the audience and lunch. That we are the ones stopping them from having lunch, and they're getting hungry. So for us to do it quickly.
We'll be quick. I'll join them for the lunch.
Okay.
We all need lunch.
Excellent.
We all need to leave.
We all need to eat lunch. So it's now time for questions from the audience. And we'll take only 2 questions. One from here, another one from Claire. So give Madam Claire and here. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for sharing your words of wisdom on how you would like to lead Nigeria as our next president. Sir, as you know, 70% of healthcare in Nigeria is provided by the private sector. We have just come out of a pandemic, and we've seen the vital role that the private sector has played. If you were made president, sir, what would you do to incentivize the investment in the healthcare sector, especially the private sector?
I'll be very quick. Support the private sector to continue doing what they're doing. Let me give you share my own experience with you, which again you can go and verify. When I got to Anambra State, there was no single ambulance, not one, owned by government. So I bought 30, gave one per local government. and kept, and they gave me a phone number that if I call, automatically, they will be there in 15 minutes. And then we went to look into School of Nursing. We were talking about primary health care. We didn't have one single School of Nursing that was accredited by the regulatory agency. No School of Midwifery, no School of Health Technology. And you can't talk about primary health care without this human resource. So, first, it was the issue of ambulance. One day, I went to see a traditional ruler of one of our big towns, called Adazan. The wife died. So I, the governor, called this ambulance. I, not to anybody, governor. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. This is governor, the number they gave us. This is not ordinary people now, it's governor who bought the ambulance. So I told the commissioner, you've seen that we've done a wrong investment. Because we called Borromeo, that was owned by a church. Within 30 minutes, they were there. So we knew that our own was wrong investment, because the ambulances have been converted to private vehicles of people. So I said, okay. So first, I said, we are not going to invest in the hospitals and facilities owned by the church. We're going to invest in Iyenu, Borromeo, others, St. Joseph and others. Our Lady of Laws, go and check these facilities. 2, I said, we're not going to invest money building School of Nursing and Midwifery from scratch. Because as a young boy growing up in Onitsha, I read that the first midwife in Nigeria was produced in Iyenu. So I said, these people have School of Midwifery before. They have School of Nursing. I'm going to invest money in it. And that's how we did across the state, working with the churches. Today we have, in Anambra State, combined over 10 schools of nursing, midwifery, health technology, all functional, because we are working with what you can call private sector. Government job is not to deliver all these things. It is to support the private sector and NGOs and this to develop it. Government doesn't manage anything. They are bad managers. Their job should be supervision, supervision, supervision. That's why even the anchor borrowers, all these programs, is not working. You just hear it in TV. It's never worked. And I know that. So that we need to deal with that. And I'm giving you an example. Go to these institutions, I'm telling you now. Borromeo, you see School of Nursing, School of Midwifery, they're working. Go to Waterside, you see School of Midwifery. Go to Yenu, go to all these facilities they're called, and ask them, what did the P2B do? They'll tell you, I invested huge amount of money in them.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Can you bring the mic here?
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Can I stand on the existing protocol? My name is Valentine Anozia, EMBA 13. Okay, my question is on economy, well, directly, particularly about the recent announcement by the CBN to redesign the currency. I want to know what your take is on that with regards to the effect, the purpose, and the timing of it. We've also seen the reaction of that announcement. You know, the dollar went up against the naira to up to 900 to 1 at some point. If this happened in your time, what would be your immediate reaction and action? Okay, and lastly, sir, okay, because it's an interview and I have the privilege to interview you, and this is a typical interview question. I've heard a lot, and I've been following you, about all the good things you've done in Anambra State, and because I believe that for a good leader, competence, passion, and the will to execute is very key. But then there's feedback. There are lessons learned. So I want you to also probably criticize yourself. What are the things you learned while you were governor or throughout your experience? And just give us a feedback about that. What would you do differently, especially at the higher level? Thank you.
Well, I think I answered the second one. I don't know whether I answered the first one. That was why I was laughing when you were asking that question. I'm sure you know that I'm involved in finance and banking. So players don't comment too much about referee. However, let me be honest with you. Those who are involved, maybe they know something I don't know, why they took that decision. If it's what they said about that some people are hoarding money, which is what I hear, and there's about 2-3 trillion that has been hoarded in people's house. Quite frankly, for me, for a 180 trillion economy, I don't think 3 trillion should be the reason for so many other things. But I'm not sure. There's something they know that I don't know. So I leave it to them until I have the full background of what is the problem. That I can deal with. On issue of lessons learned from Anambra State, quite frankly, for me, I don't think there's a lot that I can tell you that I'll change, considering where I started. You might not know where I started in Anambra State. The day I was sworn in as governor of Anambra State, there was no governor's lodge in Anambra State. There was no governor's office in Anambra State. As you know, it was burned down a year or so under my predecessor. There was no secretariat. The secretariat you see civil servants working today was built by me from the scratch. If I ask where is Minister of Agriculture, they say it's in that corner. Where is Minister of Health? It's in that corner. There was nothing. I started Ministry of Planning. I met nothing. My predecessor didn't hand over. My predecessor didn't hand over to me. As you know, we declared in the court. Luckily for me, somebody who can tell you what happened to me that day is here, Chijoke. This is our company secretary in Fidelity. I was sitting on board of Fidelity Bank as chairman, presiding the board thing, and one of the directors, let Ndubisi Kanu, said, "Stop, chairman." He said the court has declared you the winner to be governor of Anambra State, and they said you will be sworn in immediately. That's how I left off the office. I didn't even get to my house, thought it was a joke, enter plane, reach Oka, and was filling paper. They already sworn me in governor. I didn't even come with 2 clothes. I was wondering, I thought they would have given me 1 week to even, but they said the job I've started. I said, so where is governor's office? No office. Where is governor's house? I wanted to call my predecessor. I said, he said, wherever you are the government, your office, your everything. I went to my village. I was even in my village. So, considering where I came from, people will not understand it. It was, and I wasn't working in government before. So it was a huge transition. Overnight, same day, I started, running around, trying to do this, trying to do that, telling them, where is this? Let's repair the office of the governor. Let's repair this. I was trying to do what I sent to him, trying to cut costs, manage this. Of course, that was why I was impeached in 6 months. Because I was quarreling with everybody. In order to cut costs, because there was you find out that the cost of running the office of governor was almost 30-something% when education was receiving less than 5%, less than this and everything. In fact, the office of budget for office of first lady probably had more money than health, an office that doesn't exist. Nobody elected. So it was quickly, you're trying to cut costs, so those who benefited in it were after you. And that confusion lasted. Maybe the only thing I can see is maybe the only lessons I'll say is that maybe I would have managed the elites better. Because it was, if you go, there's no elite in Anambra State that was with me. I usually tell Professor Tommy, who would tell me, I said, every day I hear people, if I go to Abuja, see president, nobody's happy with you, nobody's happy with you. Even when happiness wasn't part of my promise. But they insisted, nobody's happy with you, nobody's happy with you. Even as I was preparing school, there's some things that, obviously, you would have done differently. But how I started, it was almost impossible for me to have done things differently.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm just wondering how you started without an office. You have to go back to your village. And even without this, you made some investments for Anambra State. But we are now hearing that the investments that is there or is not there. Is it really there? Your Excellency, last question.
I thought, I thought I left this question, and he went back to it. Let me be factual. I'm sure you're talking about comments from my very respectable dear elder brother, Soludo. You know, that's I and Soludo have come a long way. My brother is my friend. And he's the governor of my state. And as governor of my state, I pray for him to do very well and everything and all that. And we have to support him. It's very important and critical. He has his own opinions. His opinion might not be the opinion of people of Anambra State. It might not be the opinion of Southeast or Nigerians. But I respect his opinion because it's his opinion. And he's a respected person as far as I'm concerned. And he's my governor. But in a clarification so that people can understand, the investment I did in Anambra State was, before I talk about investment, the only measure of development while I was governor was Millennium Development Goals. It is Millennium Development Goals that India, China, Vietnam mainstreamed into their development agenda. For China, they used it to pull 439 million people out of poverty between the year 2000 and year 2015. India, within this period, put 276 million out of poverty. And Vietnam did almost 40 to 50 million out of poverty. And these are records you go and check. I became governor in 2006, was impeached end of 2006, came back. One of my greatest supporters today is one of my good supporters, the next president of Nigeria. One of the reasons why he's supporting me is that when they said I should give people money for me not to be impeached, I said, no, I can't pay people for doing the wrong thing. I would rather go. But I came back. So, for me, the measure, they started MDG in 2000, but after my impeachment, I came back in 2007, started implementing MDG. By the time Nigeria ended MDG in 2015, Anambra State was #1. The person in charge of pulling people out of poverty in Nigeria is a man called Dr. Magnus Packard. Go and ask him. I have a certificate for being #1. He's still alive. Go to Ministry of Department of Statistics. I was the first governor to do statistical record of poverty. I won a prize from Federal Ministry of Works for having the best road network. You can go to people in Anambra State. I was #1 when I started. We are number 26 and 27 in Wayaka and Neko. By the time I left, we are #1. I won the Gates Prize for health. I can go on and say this is what we achieved. But I said the overall measure is MDG. I was number one. The people who were doing it then was Amina, who is now in United Nations. I was even invited to United Nations to share my experience. And so many things I've done. And collectively, the day I left office, I was not owing any contractor who have executed his job. And these are not owing for any job that a contract we awarded. But you can only pay when job is executed. I'm not owing any contractor who have executed his job. I'm not owing any supplier who has supplied anything. I'm not owing one. Examples are people like Innocent, Xerox computer. I paid Xerox. We bought the highest amount of computer ever bought by a government in Africa. They are there. HP will tell you the same thing. I paid them 6 months up front before they supplied it to our schools. I paid Innocent 1 year before I delivered any car. You can go, this is and it's on tape, so you can go and verify all this. Above this, I decided from day one that we must have a savings as a state, and we must save at least 10% of my total receipts by the time I will leave government. Total money I received while I was governor, Anambra State received, whether it's local government, whether it's state, whether it's our local revenue, IGR, everything was about 500 and something billion naira, out of which they are left office, we had in savings 75 billion naira. And this is how the money was shared, so that you know which one is mentioned. Only one that is bad. The money we saved is A, we saved in dollar. In 3 banks in Nigeria, some of you are working in those banks. Access Bank, Diamond Bank, and Fidelity Bank. In each of these banks, I had a saving of $50 million. Dollars, I didn't say naira. And they were invested at least interest of 6.5%. If you calculate it today, as at that time, it was equivalent of 25 billion, because there were 150 something, 160. If you calculate today with interest, it's about 250, at least $250 million. These 3 banks are there. I have in each of these banks, again invested at least 10 billion naira in 3 of them, making it 30 billion. At an average interest, call it even 10%. If you calculate it, that money today would have been about 60 billion. Remember, what I left is 75 as I calculated then. So then the third one is investment I did in various companies. NIPP, we have $59 million in it. The one that they're saying is worthless is that we invested 3.5 billion in international breweries. International breweries is what you can call a global company. It's a part of AB InBev, which is the biggest brewer in the whole world. We had a policy while I was governor that any factory, anybody who wants to, foreign investor who wants to invest in Anambra State, we will buy 10% of the company, and under the condition that we will sign an agreement with him that he will give Anambra people work to the minimum of not less than 40% of the workers. They built a facility in Anambra State. That facility is there today, employing directly and indirectly over 10,000 Anambrarians. They've been one of the highest revenue source for the state. Even some of their waste, the biggest piggery we have in Anambra State, collects waste from them. There's so many things that company have done in terms of helping the state transporters, this, that, and everything. The shares was at a time being sold at 50 naira. Today, the shares is about 5 naira or so, and then maybe that was what was referred. But in overall of what I left is less than 5%.
Okay.
That particular investment is less than 5%. So if you calculate what I left 75 billion. If you go and sell the dollars today, even at 600, it's 150 billion. Plus 60 billion of the naira is 210 billion. Even if that one is wasted, 3 times what I invested is still there. When you spread your investment, some will go up, some will come down. But overall, the company is still there. The company is still doing well. It's still part of a global chain and everything. I needed to explain it not because I'm defending comment by my brother. My brother is the brother. I remains my brother. We're very close. I remain prayerful for him. For other things which I didn't succeed, God has given him opportunity to do it and succeed. For me, yes. So if there's anything pending, governance, you don't finish. People are still in government in America. So you stop where you stop. Other people will continue from there. I don't look back. He's the governor of my state. He's my senior brother. He's even more intelligent because he's a professor. I'm a trader. So he knows more. So he will be able to do things better than I'm doing it. You know, I've done my little own as a trader. Now the professor is there. He will do his own as a professor. The schools that didn't roof, he will roof them. That's how government goes. Another person comes, do his own. But let us think about, finally, like I tell you people, for those of you who are, just please get involved. All of us are going to tell you good story. All of us are going to say the same thing there. But it's who can we trust? Even in this one they're talking about me, some said he kept money and he did nothing. And I said, even in the Bible, the man said, since you know I know, why didn't you keep my money for saving? If everybody who has passed through Nigeria, who did nothing, kept money, are we going to be in problem now? We would have had the money to do something. At least I kept the money. But in this one, I did something and I took money. Next year's election, please, I'm begging all of you, should not be based on ethnicity. Don't ever do it. The Yorubas don't buy bread cheaper. Neither do Hausas or Northerners buy bread cheaper. The Southwest people don't buy bread cheaper. Igbos don't buy bread cheaper. Let nobody tell you about ethnicity. Everybody's suffering. Do not do it because of religion. No religion buys anything cheaper. No, there's no religion that have only total electricity. I said everywhere I go, Central Mosque in London, the land was donated by the Queen. The Queen is not a Muslim. That land is worth over $500 million. Well, $1 billion. He gave it to them free. If you go to Dubai, I'm a Catholic. The Catholic church in Dubai, the land and the church was built by Emir of Dubai. He donated the land, built it. It's only here that people tell you about religion. If you know people, any church, they buy anything cheaper. Show me, I'll start going there to buy the thing. So let nobody give us the excuse. And it's nobody's turn. It is turn of Nigerians to take back their country. So let nobody say it's his turn. No, it is their turn. They must take back their country. So next year's election must be on character we can trust. If you say you're not corrupt, nobody is a saint. I'm not. I've never claimed to be. And I don't know everything. The little I know, I've tried. You know. But if you say you're not going to fight corruption, let's know where you passed through. How much did you live there? How much was missing? At least today I've said where I left $150 million, left 30 billion naira. Let other people come and show where they left their own. I've said, go to Anambra State. If you see a piece of land allocated to P2OB, directly or indirectly, or the wife or anybody, come, I'll stop campaigning. So I say I will fight corruption head on because I've experimented it somewhere. I want you people who are not the employers to explain it very well. Next year's election must be character we can trust. It must be based on competence. It must be based on capacity and commitment to do the right thing. And remember, this job requires physical and mental energy to do it. We don't want people telling us this thing. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much.